by as live stream, because I'm traveling and I have a very slow internet connection over here, so I won't be able to live stream the video. Instead, I'm recording the video, okay, and I'll be uploading it to the website, YouTube. Okay, so we were actually discussing about the different technologies, and last time in the previous class we were discussing about the JSF, Java Server Faces, and we also learned about the Java Server Pages, JSP, and then we also looked at what is servlets. Of course, we did not look at programming with Java. Okay, so you need to understand that we have looked at PHP. So PHP is more important, and Java, Java and Java based web deployment is just a part of the one unit. Okay, so that is actually quite large. So let's take a look at what is the JSF. Okay, the JSF technology is a framework for developing or building server-side user interface components and using them in a web application. Okay, so you can see that the JSF technology, right? The JSF technology is based on something called model view controller. Are you guys able to see my screen? No, right? Students?
No, sir. Now, yes, sir. Now we can see it.
Now you can see it. Sure. All right. So, yeah. So this is actually based on a model view controller architecture. Okay. So you need to think of the whole thing that we have done so far in this web technology course as something that will enable us to build a website or create web applications. That would be a better usage. Okay, so it would allow us to create web applications from scratch. Okay, and we have actually quite learned a lot of different technologies that will help us enable that. Okay, so if we look at it from a diagrammatic point of view, say we can say that the web technology, right, consists of multiple blocks. Say for example, like API. Okay, so the web technology, if we consider it, it will contain multiple things. It contains the server side, and it contains the client side part. Okay, and it contains the client side part. So if we, I'll just the area into white. Okay, so let me put it this way. Okay, so where the web technology consists of these major things, and then it consists of the other networking aspects as well, correct? So if we look at it, it will contain the networking aspects as well. Okay, then you can look at it from different aspects, like for instance the designing the UI part. Okay, those all fall in the client side part. Okay, so here we have the here we didn't learn much in the client side. Of course, in the server side we have looked at HTML. So you may be asking me, HTML and CSS and JS, right, could be the client side part. Of course, those are the client side those are the things that gets executed or rendered at the client side. But when it comes to hosting the entire website on a web server, you have to host the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then the PHP. If it is PHP, then PHP. If it is Java based, then you need to have the Tomcat server. Okay, if it is PHP based, then you have to have the Apache server. Okay, and if it is depending on the programming language, you can use different things. So you can have a Python based thing with GUnicorn server. You can have Nginx server for PHP as well. Okay, it's not binding. That means that you need to always have Apache. That's not the case. You can run Apache, PHP over IIS as well, I believe. Okay, so different things are there. Now over here, if we look at the second, we go deeper, we have seen that we have learned different things which are starting from HTML, then the CSS part, okay, then the JS part, then the Ajax part. Okay, so in between we learned about XML, correct? In between we learned about Apache, correct? In between we learned about Tomcat, then we learned about database, right? And different things. And in the previous page I told you that we have some networking aspects also that is there, because when it comes to Apache configuration, etc., right, of course we have looked at the networking aspects, etc., as well. Okay, and you then on the next higher level for hosting, right, you have self hosting, you have VPS hostings. Okay, you have let me move more into what I wanted to actually tell. Say cloud based hosting is there for you, where you will be actually using some things like Docker, virtual machines, okay, GCP or AWS, or it can be your own Minikube cluster, okay, which uses Kubernetes and Docker. Okay, so a lot of things are there, which means that these are all the things that you will need to create a very basic application or any application that you can actually think of. Now you know that with the additional power that JS and Ajax can deliver to you, your applications need not be always constrained to the server, right? Because you can actually offload a lot of computations to the client, and the client is going to actually do a lot of computation regarding the JS and the Ajax part, where depending on the way the user interacts with the website or the web application, the user will get different responses, and that is all done by Ajax and JS, and that makes it more better in the overall usability and overall computational wise as well. Because usability wise, it's not just the user appeal that works, but also it reduces the total time it takes for the connection to be established and getting the entirely new page updated, right? So that is one thing. And another thing would be the computational power is actually getting shared between the systems on the internet. Say for example, even if it is your mobile phone, even if it is your laptop, or even if it is a tablet that you are using to browse the internet, your device also plays a crucial role in displaying what you are seeing. And it is not just the web server that is responsible for displaying what is shown on the phone, because your phone also does computation, which means that the total computation which would have actually been totally centralized on the server, because every time HTML or HTTP, okay, we have learned HTTP also, right? So the HTTP, since it's a stateless protocol, right, every time if I have to talk to the web server, I will have to I will be getting a totally different new thing. But with the Ajax and the JS and the PHP based session management and cookies management, I am able to do the stateful operations as well. Okay, so stateful operations means that the second time I contact the same website will return me the details that I want after I have logged in, and not the login page itself. Because if it is completely stateless, then it means that every time I try to log in, I will never be able to log in, because it doesn't understand anything regarding the state, because HTTP is totally stateless. And on top of that, we have different applications. So you need to think of it as different layers that are getting that we are working on as well. Okay, so let me just make it bigger. Okay, so you need to think of it as different layers that we are working on, something like that. Okay, so we build from the very smallest thing, and although there are some constraints regarding the protocols that we have to use, we actually overcome a lot of those things with the different applications and the different ways with which we can program the entire network. Okay, so the JSF technology, right, it is based on the model view controller. So the model view controller is something that we have already come across. Say for example, Django and Ruby on Rails, right, are both MVC architectures. So both are MVC architectures, and then there are different applications like that. For example, Laravel for PHP. Okay, and there are different things. Okay, for example, for Golang also we have a different MVC framework, etc. Okay, and an MVC, what is MVC? So MVC means that okay, so we were looking at the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP and all those things, right? So if you look at the server, at the server side, okay, what happens is what MVC does. So it means that when an incoming request is received by the web server, okay, when an incoming request is received by the web server, it does something internal, right? This blue box, if we consider it as the web server, then it has to do a lot of things internally. And if we look at the model view controller, so model view and controller, you need to now understand that it is a way for us to segregate the code or the logic of the application, okay, that we are developing. Let's say it can be with Java, or it can be with Java, it can be with Java, or it can be with PHP, it can be with Python, it can be with Ruby, or any programming language that you can think of, or Golang. Okay, so this particular idea of separating the entire concern of the program or the application into three different major components called model, view and controller. So controller is where the control logic resides, and view is where the user interface resides. So that is what the templates and all of those things will take care of. And the models is what the database is related with. Say for example, your application, right, we have seen that server DB HTTP. So if you look at okay, so last time we have seen this picture where we have the user at the client. User is accessing a website, and that is actually on an application server, and the application server has connection to a database server where the database is stored, where all the data that is coming. Say for example, we discussed, if we use Facebook, right, we will want to upload photographs or posts or something like that. So where does the photographs go? Where does it reside? So it goes into the database, right? So there is a client, application server, then the database. So this database is what enables us to store the data, and this database needs to be constantly accessed by the application that we are developing. Okay, and so you need to think of it as the database is always required by the application that we are using. Okay, so the application will be writing and reading from the database. Okay, so the application is going to be designed in such a way that it will be divided into model, view and controller part, where the view is where actually the user gets to see the UI. Okay, that means that the view is the part of the code which will define the display, the UI, user interface. So example, user clicks, add to cart are all the things that the view will take care of. Not actually, so say for example, add to cart, the logic that will run the add to cart functionality will be given to the controller as well. Okay, because the UI is just going to take care of the user interface, how it will look and feel. But on the back end, when the database needs to be updated, or when the database needs to be read from, or when the whole application needs to save some data for a short while of time, in all these situations you have to invoke the model and the controller as well. Okay, so which means that the view is going to interact with the controller by sending the input from the user. So the controller then runs the logic based on the input, and then it manipulates the model. So we have learned the CRUD model. I have already shared a video with you about the database connectivity with PHP, right? So we have learned the CRUD model. So that is just that is where you have learned about the statelessness and the statefulness of the HTTP protocol, right? Because the CRUD application makes it stateful. HTTP is stateless. Okay, so the model is now defined there. Okay, so the model can also be called as, say, active records. If you look at what are active records, okay, you can see that the M in MVC, which is the layer of the system responsible for representing the business data and logic. Okay, so that is that's something that you can find from Ruby on Rails guides. Okay, so the Ruby on Rails actually tells it as active record pattern, and it means that instead of actually manipulating the rows and the columns in the database server, here the model will allow us to manipulate the data as an object. Okay, so you can actually incorporate object oriented programming also in here. So the model can define the data structure, update application to reflect added item, etc. And whenever you have an update or something, the view can fetch that from the model. Okay, and once the model, the data is manipulated and the things are done, once the control is passed back to the controller, as in the program's control is passed back to the controller then sends the updates to the view, and the view then sends it back to the person. Okay, so this JSF architecture is an MVC design pattern. Okay, so in MVC design pattern, model designs mentions the database part, view mentions the template part, that is the user interface part. Okay, templates for the user interface, etc. Say all of you guys have worked on the Django project in software engineering with me, right? And in that one, the PhD applications had the views, models and the controllers. Do you guys remember that, students? Oh,
We can hear.
okay, we have very few students who have joined today, only 12. What happened to the others? Okay, so anyway, so that's the model view and the controller part. So this architecture is for separating the logic from the presentation. Okay, so the model carries the data and login, view shows the user interface, controller handles the processing of an application. Okay, so you can look at what is the purpose of the MVC design pattern, etc. Okay, so the major things that we can look in for a particular thing would be route and handling functions. Okay, so if you just look for that, you may not, routes. Just a second. Yeah, so they you can see that for the first few links itself is actually showing you what exactly it is. Okay, so for example, if I look at the first link, it's based on Express Node.js, but the idea with what these things work are almost the same. Okay, so here you have the routes and controllers. Okay, so they are mentioning that when a HTTP request is incoming to the application, it looks at the routes. So for example, the application, it could be like iitt.ac.in/login or phd-applications.iitt.ac.in/login, phd-applications.iitt.ac.in/print. It could be dashboard, it could be my account, update details. So the route, as in the URL, could be different. Now based on the incoming HTTP request and based on the method with which it is bound with, that is the get or the post method, the routes are actually created by us. Okay, so we have to create the routes, as in we have to define the routes, and based on the routes it will forward the request to the appropriate controller. So what does a controller mean here? That means that it is a function or a method that it is actually calling based on what kind of programming language you are using. So it could be a completely an object oriented thing that you do in Java or PHP as well, or it could be a totally procedural thing that you are doing in Java or PHP as well. Okay, so based on that you will forward the request to the appropriate controller. The controller now creates objects, runs logic, okay, then manipulates the data, get the updates, okay, does all the things, okay, and it could talk to the models could in turn talk to the database. It would want to once so the controller is here, which got the request from the route. Okay, so the controller is now going to execute a set of statements for this particular request that is received at the server side, and the controller knows that the controller is executing the steps. First is that it has to get the name of the person who has logged in. Okay, so I have used the username anoopjt@gmail.com. Now how does it display hello Anoop Jacob Thomas when I log into Facebook or some other website? So which means that it has to know the name. And where does it save the name? It saves it in the database, which means that the controller talks to the model gets the data from the database, gives it back to the controller. Then the controller has to talk to the templates. Okay, templates are some part of the system where the user interface is defined, which means that based on certain constraints of the device's display or the device's settings, we will have to populate the code that will be shown on the user's device. So that is the template. So this website that we are seeing, it has a left scrolling part, okay, it has a middle content part, then right links part, right? So this is what we can think of as templates. And templates, each template, right, it has a the left related topics part, it contains the left links with triangular bullet points, so which probably would expand when upon clicking. I'm just assuming, I'm not going to click over there. Okay, Now what happens is that it will generate a HTTP, oh I'm sorry, an HTML document based on all the information that it has taken from the models and based on the view that has been defined for that particular application. And now all of these things are put together by the controller and sent as a HTML through a HTTP response back to the client, and that is how we will see the whole thing. So essentially what we are looking at over here is that, you know, the PHP or the Java, right, be it whatever, you can still further divide it into blocks like this, where your application is now programmed in an MVC pattern such that the logic and the data is separated. Okay, and what is the additional advantage of doing like this? Why did we learn something like this in software engineering? Of course, maintainability. Okay, because if you are going to write the details that are required for the models right there where the controllers are going to be written, and you are going to put all the details about the views or the templates right where the controller is going to be written, then it means that essentially this is not going to be three different components, but this one single monolithic component, which is going to be very hard to modify and you know, maintain over the long period of time. Okay, so here we came to this particular website because we were looking about routes. Okay, so the routes is a section of any, you know, the JSF or the Django or the Ruby on Rails thing, where you will get some request to the server. It could be a get, put, post, or a delete request, or could be any other request, and URL is there. Say for example, router.get/function request is what is res? I'm not. It's another parameter. Okay, I think it's the result. Okay, we are passing both the request as well as the result objects into the function, which is going to handle the slash path. And if it is slash about for a website, then we will pass the request and the response to the function that is mentioned over here. Okay, and then it will send about this wiki and result sent. So you can actually look up about the different syntax by which these things are made. Okay, so yeah, you can also have you know, different regular expressions over here. Okay, say why do we need regular expressions? Because if we are going to use some particular pattern of input in the URL, or the URL contains a particular pattern and we want to extract that pattern, and then we want to get the different components from that URL, and then we want to use that, we can do it that way also using the regular expressions. And then you can have route parameters. So for a get request, right, you can have user /101/books/20. Okay, something like that, where the user ID, book ID. Okay, you can see that this is something related to definitely object oriented programming over here, right, because you have user ID, you have book ID. Okay, request.params.user ID, request.params.book ID, etc. Okay, and if you were going to work with a local library, right, you definitely need to have some routes like catalog objects. Okay, that's catalog books, catalog journals, catalog object ID, that is catalog book, then the book ID like 584493C1, right, you are able to see this, right. Then catalog object create, catalog book create, catalog object ID update. So if you go at Facebook, right, you will see that you will be able to see the user ID of a person, you will be able to see what action it's going to perform based on what you know, keywords are there in the URL, etc. Okay, so catalog object ID update, then catalog object ID delete, so catalog book, then the ID of the book update, catalog book ID of the book delete, and things like that. Then you can have route handler callback functions. Okay, so rest is all code. Okay, rest is all code with which you will actually wire up, I would say, with which you will actually mesh up the entire systems together, wire up the entire systems, connect the systems properly, so that it's like electrical circuits what you can think of at this point in time, because you have a route that is coming, and now based on the configuration, or you have a request that is coming, and based on the configuration in the request URL, you are going to now connect it to the correct controller, and that controller is now going to talk to the models, views and certain things, and going to get all these details that are required. Okay, so here, right, they have mentioned about different other controllers. Okay, okay, you have a function which will display the authors list as authors list. Okay, and that will be associated with the function that is defined over here. Okay, and different other attributes or methods are associated with this author controller. Okay, and different functions will take care of those actions. And same way, the book instance controller will also have things like that. Then the genre controller, book controller. Okay, and then finally you will have a project path. Okay, so why the reason I didn't show you Django, because Django is something that you have worked with, and I wanted to actually show you some similarity. Of course, you might have looked into, some of you might have looked into Ruby on Rails, some of you might have looked into Express Node.js, okay, etc., React.js, etc. So this will help you now finally create the routes, correct? So you can create the router.get routes. Okay, and then define which function it is going to be associated with. Okay, so I'll just share this link with you. You please also look into the details about how we are going to develop a Django page. Okay, then okay, so that's about the routes. So you have the model view controller. Okay, so user interacts with the view. Then the second one is view alerts controller of particular event. Controller updates a model. Model alerts view that it has changed. View grabs model data and updates itself. So all these are the things that will happen. Okay, so you can think of user uses the controller, user sees the view, view gets the updates from the model, controller manipulates the model. Okay, so that's the complete pattern. And Django, Ruby on Rails, these are all MVC based patterns, and we have already seen how the database is connected using the MySQL with the PHP, and with Java Node.js, or with JSF, we have the same things there also. Okay, so here you have the JDBC integration, etc. So this is the JSF architecture. The JSF uses the MVC architecture. Okay, so on an application server, which is a Tomcat, Apache Tomcat server, you have a J2EE Enterprise Edition, on which you have the Java JSF web application that is running, which contains the controller, view and the models. So the controller are the servlets, and the views are the JSF components or the JSP pages. Okay, and then you have the models, which are the managed beans, which will interact with the data and then do the necessary things. And there you have the JSF library and the tags also, because you have the JSF web application which is going to work with the different libraries and the tags that are already available with you. Okay, and here, right, you can go to JSF first application. You can look at how to create a very simple JSF application. Okay, so you need to install Maven. Okay, Maven is a I think a package management tool for Java, right? So it's a Apache Maven is a software project management and comprehension tool based on the and that's for Java, primarily for Java projects. And Maven can also be used to build and manage projects written in C#, Ruby, Scala, etc. But it's primarily for Java. So you have to install Maven. Then using Maven, you will do the first bootstrapping command, okay, and that will create the first basic directory structure. So you can take a look at Ruby on Rails first application. I mean, getting started with Ruby on Rails. So that also say that it's based on MVC architecture, okay, and okay. So install Rails, then SQLite. They are using SQLite database, Node.js and Yarn, okay. And for creating a blog application, we will do the Rails new blog, okay. So that will contain the basics things to add the as in just a second, yeah, as in it will contain the what's it called, it's not bootstrapping. I'm actually forgetting that particular word. I'm just trying to recollect that. It's called scaffolding, okay. So scaffolding, also called it's like a temporary structure used to support a work crew and materials to aid in the construction, maintenance and repair of the material. So you can think of this, what is happening over here, like the directory structure and the files that are getting created, right? It's called it's creating a temporary structure, and it's actually called scaffolding, okay, in the computer terms as well, okay. It's just not the building terminology, but it's in the computer terms also. They do the scaffolding, and which means that there will be different folders and different subfolders and different files where you have to do some configurations, okay. And then finally you will create a project. You will be able to add the servlets, faces servlet, okay, and then you can create managed beans, okay. Then you can create the JSF page, and then you can create the build the project. And once you have built the project, right, it is we have already discussed that it is a what is it? It's a Java is a byte compiled code, and which means that this is an intermediate code that will be executed by the Java virtual machine, okay. So then you will run the thing. Now that's JSF. And one more thing that I want to show you is, say for example, not this one. So okay. So a few days back we wanted to run a website on the institute subdomain athrang.iitt.ac.in, okay. But then when I tried to connect to the IIIT web server, what happened was, at that point in time, the Athrang, right, I was not unable to run it, because now I'm going to list the sessions. This is where the Athrang is running right now. So I've just stopped Athrang, okay. So Athrang has gone down. Now the reason why I showed you this is, okay, so let me clear it and let me show you the git log, okay. You can see that the Athrang, once Mayank has given me the code, right, it took me some time, and because we were running an older version of npm and an older version of node, and when we went for the updates at at that point in time it did not work, and then to start the project in a different port, we were unable to do that. So this would now run the server, okay, and Ethereum is back online. But this was not getting ready at that time. So at that time I showed you the git log, right? At that time I thought of a solution, and I asked Dinesh to add a Docker file. So let's take a look at git diff with this commit hash. Okay, so git diff. Okay, so you can see that the only thing that has changed is, don't worry about the package JSON. The only thing that has actually changed is there's something called a Docker file that is added, and the Docker file contains this as the necessary code in the Docker file. So what I will do is cat Docker file. Okay, so this is the entire code. Now what is this doing? Does anyone have any idea of what is happening? Have you heard of something called containers? Students? Yes, Shravani has heard of containers. Shravani, can you, yeah, in Docker, yes. So Shravani, can you please explain what are containers, or what do you understand from the word container? Maybe you can unmute and speak.
Yes, sir. If we take containers in Docker, they are if the data will be divided into small packets called containers, and for if you want to transfer the data from one system to another system, like the data in one container will be of same type. Same types, sir, means it will include all type
Why are
data
you saying about only data?
The software related to it, needed for it, everything will be.
Yes, okay. So container, okay. Thank you, Bhavana. So container is something that is having all the necessary applications and the stack that is required to run that particular software. Say for example, if I take my terminal and I type uname -r, okay, it is going to print 4.19.0-18 plus AMD, right? 18 hyphen AMD, okay. Or uname -a, it's going to print something that is based on a Debian system and some things like that. Now it means that what I was discussing over here at this particular page, at this particular terminal, when I was showing you the Docker, I told you that I was unable to run the application because of the Node.js being, or the npm being an older version. Now this one required a later version to be used. How can I use a later version on a computer which is probably using an older version, and the computer already has different websites that is also dependent on the older versions? Now that is where the containers come to rescue. So container is a so let's take a look at what is Docker container. Okay, so Docker is a software. So you can think of the Docker as a software which okay, so where did this go? Okay, so here, right, here you have a host operating system and a hypervisor. So on the left side you have containers, and on the right side you have virtual machines. So a virtual machine, right, we will have to emulate a complete computer system, but on a Docker container all we have to emulate is the library files, nothing else. Okay, we don't have to emulate the entire system. Okay, so here, right, in the virtual machine, on the left side you have virtual machine, and on the right side is a container. So containers are lightweight, what do you call as environments where you can actually run applications, or where you can do where you can do specific tasks. Okay, so for a virtual machine based system, you have a server, host operating system, hypervisor, then the guest operating systems, then the binaries and libraries, then application A dash, application B, because application A is dependent on the binaries and the libraries and the guest OS that is shown on the leftmost tower, and the application A dash is on the middle tower, and application B requires a different one. While if we have to run application A dash, application B dash, B dash, B dash, B dash, or some other different applications on the same host operating system, instead of actually having different guest operating system, we can use Docker engine and the Docker containers, which would totally help you avoid the need for actually having a guest operating system in the layer. You can get rid of the guest operating system and the hypervisor layer, and that will get replaced by the Docker engine, which will in turn use, and then you will have different binaries and libraries and all those things. So over here, let me take a look at history grep Docker. Yeah, so we can take a look at what are the commands that I have used. So docker build -t athrunk dot, so that will actually so I will do an ls. You can see that it contains, I am at the place where the repository contains the code, and I have a file called docker file. That's all what I have over here. And I'm sorry, not cat docker file, right? So in the cat docker file, it says that from node 16 Alpine 3.14, so that is Alpine based Linux distribution that it needs to pull, and the node, it's for running the node server, which means that the node comes pre-installed in that. So it will pull the kernel that is required to run the node, and then copy every content of this folder to the Alpine's parent folder. Okay, and then on that run the command npm install, and then finally run the command npm start. That's what it does. Okay, so let's try to run this particular code. Okay, so before that, do you have another class right now? Are you guys free or busy?
No class now, sir.
No class. So can I take 10 more minutes? So sudo docker help. I'll just type help. Okay, so I'm sorry. Because it is scrolling, and because I'm in a Tmux terminal, I won't be able to scroll with my mouse. Okay. Docker manage Docker image, sudo docker image and ls. Okay, now I am going to do rm athrunk. I'm just going to delete that particular okay, it's -f. Is it going to remove it? Yes, it deleted the container. Now there's no container called athrunk in here. Okay, now I'm going to I'm going to build the whole thing once, so that you will understand what is happening here. Okay, so first is I have to build the athrunk. Okay, so I'll build the athrunk with the command docker build -t, the tag, that's for a tag, and that's called athrunk. I can give it any name. I can give it as Adib, I can give it as Dinesh, I can give it as Anup, I can give it as Bhavana, I can give it as Shravani, okay, Avinash, anyone. Okay, and dot means that it's the current thing that I want. Oh, by the way, Docker, for some reason, this particular I mean, I have not configured it with the local user, so which means that I need to run it as a sudo docker command. Okay, that's the reason why I have this command over here in line in my 1960 in the history. Okay, so yeah, now take a look at what is happening. So it means that sending build context to docker daemon. Okay, so it's going to it's sending some build context to the docker daemon. only thing that we have added is the Docker file. So just understand how the layering works in the web technology part. Okay, in the world of web technology, how the entire application is layered and put it as a capsule in a container, and then the container is sent forward to another person to run it. So if another person wants to run the thing, he just needs to pull the container and just run the program. He doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't have to set up the server. He doesn't have to do anything. Okay, so it says from node 16 Alpine 3.14 it got something. Okay, that's the step 1 of 4. Then the second step was copy dot to dot, which means that copy the contents in the current directory, present working directory, to the containers present working directory. Okay, so it is copying all the contents that are present in that particular working directory, which is the Athrang directory in the git important at on the IIIT web server. Okay, so it's doing the the second step. Okay, I hope it doesn't get messed up and we will be able to see. Yeah, okay, so that is also done. So that's the second layer, and then it does the npm install. Okay, when the npm install was done, was being done, right, it gave us you can see that it has tried to get the latest thing from the thing. So it means that it did a lot of things with just one command that I ran, and then finally it did command npm start. Okay, successfully built this particular container, successfully tagged Athrang latest, and now let's try to run it. Okay, so before that I want to see whether this particular website is running right now. No, at present the website is not working. Athrang is not working. Earlier I was running it on the web server with the node, because after I had to use the Docker, I fixed the issue, because here we don't have many things which are totally mutually exclusive. Okay, so it doesn't work that way. We can do some little changes here and there, and I am running it all in one single stack at present. So yeah, so when I had to run the Docker, right, next thing what I do is Docker npm start generally starts that server on the port number 3000. So here I am running the Docker image Athrang. Okay, and I am manually doing a port forwarding. That's where I told you there's something called networking also that is present here, because on my system, okay, this port number 4009 is where I am running Athrang. Okay, so which means that right now there is no application that is bound to port number 4009, and that is the reason why it is showing as service unavailable. And now if I run this command, right, earlier I was running it through the 4000 port is equal to 4009 npm start. You guys saw that, right? So let me show you that once again. Yeah, it was running through this command, port is equal to 4009 npm start. So after I fix the npm issues on the server, okay, now if I have to run it on Docker, which means that the port number 4009 which my Athrang website is looking for, okay, needs to be mapped to the Docker containers port number 3000. Okay, so now there is a mapping, again a wiring that is happening here, over there, and it says that it has run, and I can now go and look at the sudo docker stats. Okay, and it will say that there is this particular container that is running. Okay, all right, now I press refresh and you can see that the Athrang website has come back online. So this time it's running as a Docker service. Earlier it was running as a Node.js service. Right now it is running as a Docker service, but inside the Docker it is running as a Node.js service. Okay, so that is what I wanted to show you. And so we have looked at scaffolding, we have looked at routes, we have looked at the MVC architecture, then we have looked at the Docker things, and so Docker and Kubernetes and the GCP and the AWS, these are all related things. Okay, so that's it, guys. This is what I wanted to show you. And regarding the case studies we have to do, you guys have already looked at the routes and the different things that we need when we create a book or a library. Okay, and so all you need to understand is that it is all about creating the database and writing the code that will help you do that. Okay, so in the next two classes, right, what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to focus, use that time to learn and write some code in PHP that will work with the backend. And of course you have to submit the assignment also. When is the assignment going to be submitted? On 13th, right? Students?
Sir, regarding that, will you create in Moodle?
Yes, I'll create on Moodle.
Okay, sir.
Just a second, I'll go to Moodle. Have I not already added it?
No, sir.
Just a second. Assignment 2. Okay,
Okay.
no, that is only the formation of the groups and the problem statements. And I think I will create another submission, assignment 2. So that is going to be on due date on 13th, right? That's what we discussed earlier in the class, right?
Yes, sir.
So what time shall I put? 5 p.m.
6 p.m., sir.
6 p.m. Okay, let it be 8 p.m. then.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
5 p.m. Anything?
Yeah, 8
Another-
p.m. That's okay. 8 p.m. on 13th April. You need to upload one file. Okay, and you need to also upload a PDF file in that with either readme, which will have the screenshots of how to run the program. Okay, what are the things that are required to set up the thing. So I should be able to understand all your programming effort from just looking at the PDF, because you should include the screenshots of the renderings that you have got for the mobile, for the for the web, for the laptop, the databases that you have created, and all the information that is required. Okay, so expand. Okay, and finally what I will accept is a archive file, right? Can be a zip file because it needs to contain the PDF.
Sir, a zip file and a PDF, sir.
No. The zip file will
PDF should be in the zip
code.
file or
Yeah,
PDF?
the zip file will be
Okay.
zip file will contain the code as well as the readme.pdf and the readme.md files as well. Okay, and all the
Okay, sir.
all the code that you want. You can actually replace the images with low resolution. So try to make the submission maximum 4 MB. If there are more submissions, for this particular thing, if you I think one should be fine. If there are more things that is required for a particular team, then I request you to tell me that. Okay, and what I will do one more thing. I will actually no, the PDF should be fine. All right, so grade is going to be out of 100, let's say, and save and return the course. Yes, so that's the assignment 2 that's available, and the last date for is 13th April 2022, 8 p.m. Okay, so just go and upload your assignment also over there. Okay, so I hope throughout this course you have come across different technologies and how we will be using these different technologies together to program the web, etc. Okay, so that's the whole idea. And here at the end we have learned about the MVC architecture, we have learned about a little bit about the Docker. Okay, and say if you want to use say there's something called Vagrant. Okay, so how many of you have heard of that? So Vagrant, right? You can use some codes like Vagrant init, okay, Vagrant up, Vagrant SSH, okay, and things like that. So this is related to virtual machine management, okay, and Docker is related to container management. And then you have something called Kubernetes that is related to cluster management. where you have the Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration system for automating software deployment, which means that we are going to use containers for the clusters. Okay, so that's where I use the term mini cube. Okay, so you can look at these things as well. And you can actually, if you have a decent system which is 16 GB RAM or 8 GB RAM is also pretty good enough to try out different things with virtual machines, Vagrant, Kubernetes. You can definitely try Kubernetes with 8 GB RAM, because you're going to work with Docker containers. You can actually have containers deployed for your web application. You can have another container for database, and you can have the data saved in another folder which is mapped as a volume in the database container, etc. So a lot of things are possible, so many things are possible. Okay, so I hope you have a good appreciation and you have good knowledge on a good appreciation of the entire web technology part, and a good knowledge of writing HTML, little bit of CSS, JavaScript, Ajax, PHP mainly, okay, and database connectivity as well. So these are the major things that I hope you have learned so far, and try to please spend the rest of the 2 days of time, because I won't be taking classes in the next 2 days. I'll wind up the portions over here itself, because rest is all majorly programming, where you have to put up the effort to get the understanding of the different things that are working. If you have any questions, do please get in touch with me. So if you have no further questions, I will leave today, and good luck for your examinations, and do submit the assignment on time. And I will be
Thank you, sir.
I will be giving you the CT2 papers shortly before your exams.
Okay, sir.
Okay. I mean, on or before the CSOA 1 or CSOA 13 exam. All right, guys. Thank you so much. See you in the next
Thank you,
semester.
sir.
Yeah, depending on the electives or whatever that you choose. Bye. Thank you.